you need to think about how much time you can devote to this on a daily basis. Make a commitment. It's got to be every day. It's not once a week, once a month, night before the interview. That ain't going to work.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast series. Whether you're at school, sixth form, university, thinking about a career in law, or exploring law careers, you're in the right place. We are the one-stop shop for student lawyers. If you'd like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentlawyer.com. This episode is sponsored by the University of Law. The University of Law offers a range of undergraduate and postgraduate courses and master's degrees alongside an award-winning pro bono clinic, so you can build up your legal experience while studying. And their experienced career service will enable you to put your best foot forward when launching your legal career. The courses are employment focused and based on real legal practice, so you'll be better prepared for the workplace. Part-time and online study options are available so you can work and study at the same time. Click the link in the description box of the podcast to find out more about the courses on offer.
I want to bore people to tears.
Yeah, it's okay, we can edit it.
No, don't keep that in. I don't want to bore people to tears is the main sort of thing here, but yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast series. My name's Camilla. I'm a trainee solicitor and I'm going to be your host for today. In today's episode, we are joined by Peter Watson of watsonsdaily.com. Peter is an ex-stockbroker and a commercial awareness expert. He is a writer of Watson's Daily, a daily newsletter that gives you the essence of key global business and financial markets news with explanation and opinion. And Peter, this must be your first or second, your second or third time on the podcast now. So huge welcome back. Thank you for joining us today.
It's marvelous. It's like putting on a pair of comfortable slippers. That's slipping into your favorite armchair. No, don't worry. No, it's a family podcast, I'm sure. So yeah.
So we, as you know, we brought you onto the show to discuss the key themes that aspiring lawyers should know about. And then at the end, we are going to pick your brains on how our listeners can develop commercial awareness and impress at interviews. So we will hand over to you and your expertise. What are the key themes that you think that aspiring lawyers should know about?
Okay, so there are a few. There's a lot of different things obviously going on at the moment, but I just thought I'd mention a few. So first of all, I think it's really important that people should be thinking about the rise of investment in the Middle East. I think everything is changing. I feel that we are living in an age where the geopolitical sands are changing considerably. So by that, I mean, I feel that like the US is losing its influence in various parts of the world, and particularly the Middle East, Middle East and China, because I think that, for example, I think it was last year or so, Joe Biden, he was just going into some elections and I think midterms or something. And he actually asked Saudi Arabia, can you produce more oil so that the oil price goes down? And they said no. Whereas in the past, they would have done something, and there's kind of a sort of a relationship. But it looks to me like the Saudis are kind of ignoring the Americans largely. The Chinese are ignoring the Americans as well. When was it? Yesterday, I think President Xi and Putin were meeting, and they, the US said, don't, we don't want you, as in China, to support Russia's war in Ukraine. And they ignore that as well. So, I mean, basically, it seems that China's ignoring America. Saudi Arabia's ignoring America. A lot of places in the Middle East seem to be ignoring America. It's very interesting. So that means that there's a bit of a vacuum going on, and it means you've got, China is pouring more money into the Middle East because they feel that that is a safer bet because they don't have to worry about US sanctions there. It's a bit freer. So I mean, there's a lot of money pouring in there, and there's a lot of money elsewhere pouring into Saudi Arabia because the growth potential there is huge. Because it's kind of a blank sheet. It's not quite a blank sheet, but it's quite a blank sheet of paper. They've got lots of things that they need to set up, like 5G networks and things. And they've got these big projects, and they're really trying to change everything according to the Vision 2030, which is so the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he has this vision of trying to wean Saudi Arabia off oil revenues. And in doing that, there's been a campaign which we've seen, like, it's putting money into tourism. Then there's I mean, the controversial word sports washing. That's been going on to try to make Saudi Arabia seem more sort of cuddly and friendly. And then there's all these new things coming. They're starting off their EVs. They're doing, trying to put money into green technology. They've got new, the Neon project as well. So there's loads and loads of stuff going on, and everyone's trying. But yeah, so there's that. You've got Russia is trying to replace Europe with other markets. So Europe used to take a lot of the oil and gas, and for obvious reasons they don't now. And so Russia is trying to replace Europe with other markets like China and India, and they're doing pretty well. But then, yeah, just generally, there's so much changing at the moment, and it feels like these changes are going to continue because, especially if you think about the US and what's going to happen between the US and China, looks like it's going to be more of the same, whoever gets into the White House. And I think it's really unusual how you have, Biden in the previous election was less anti-China than Trump. But now Biden is trying to outdo Trump in how much he is trying to restrict China. And that is interesting because normally in an election, you'll have, one candidate saying one thing and then the other candidate saying the opposite. But the fact that they're both going in the same direction would suggest to me that this is what they're being advised, that this is what the voters want. So yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we are living in really interesting times at the moment, and I think sometimes, when you live through stuff like this, you don't necessarily appreciate it because there's so much going on. But I feel that you need to kind of almost sit back and just take it all in and think about how much is changing.
Absolutely, and I think from also like a law firm perspective, a lot of firms have opened up there because of the reasons that you've said, but also because I think they've changed their laws, which can't remember how it used to operate, but now each law firm would need a license to operate in Saudi. Therefore, and the Saudi related work can't be moved to foreign offices. Mm-hmm. So I suppose that's why law firms have to open up their offices there.
Yeah.
Which I think is,
it's pretty amazing. I mean, I think that there's, if you are a young lawyer and you're early on in your career, I mean, I think that the opportunities there are going to be huge. I don't know how long it's going to last for. I don't know what the regulatory environment is going to be like. But certainly from where I'm sitting at the moment, it does look like there are going to be a lot of opportunities over there.
Absolutely. And in terms of other themes that aspiring lawyers should know about, what else would you add to that?
So another theme thought we'd talk about today is why I feel that we are on the verge of an M&A boom in the UK. So I think first of all, there's the macro environment that we see ourselves in at the moment. It looks like interest rates are going to come down. That means, although at the moment it looks like the UK and Europe may start cutting rates earlier than the US. Normally they try to stay roughly in sync, but it just seems that the US is having more issues with taming inflation than we are. Although actually that changed again yesterday, but still. Anyway, so the idea is the interest rates are going to come down. That means that it will cost less to service debt, and if you've got cheaper debt, business confidence is improving. So it means that if you've got cheaper debt plus higher business confidence, it means that there's more likely to be investment by companies in themselves and growing and maybe buying other companies and things like that. So there's that as well. I also think that private equity firms some of them have become almost mini conglomerates over the pandemic years, because back a few years ago, interest rates were around zero or near zero. So private equity firms were loading up on debt, and they were like kids in a candy shop, because all these companies were suffering horrendously because of lockdown. And so you had these amazing assets that were going for sometimes fire sale prices, while the PE companies had tons of money that they could just buy all this stuff. And, whereas generally speaking, private equity firms tend to be sort of specialists in particular areas, like, say, real estate or something like that. They were just looking at opportunities and thinking, well, this is good. This is too good to
Buying
turn down.
anything.
So, yeah. But the problem has been that they've then ended up with loads of different assets on their balance sheet. All the while, their cost of their debt has been going up because the interest rate's going up. But they couldn't get rid of anything because nothing was going on in the market. But now that appears to me to be turning a corner. You've got, investment banks like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley have been saying since last year that they feel that the M&A is really starting to motor. And we've seen, I think last year especially, there was a lot of consolidation in the oil, in the oil sector, for instance. But there's been loads of it going on, and it just feels to me that there is momentum there. There's the willingness there that they want to do. They want to do all this sort of M&A activity. I mean, the other I guess in terms of, I'll say, more technical aspects, I suppose the listing rules are changing on the London Stock Exchange. I mean, there has been some people been tearing their hair out recently in terms of all these companies are delisting, or they're listing in New York. I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. In a lot of cases, it's because those businesses have changed, either through acquisition or just generally they've made a transition. Like Flutter, for instance, it voted overwhelmingly recently to go and list in New York. Now, that makes loads of sense because, well, the growth over here has basically plummeted particularly since fixed odds betting terminals, so FOBTs, have been basically neutralized because they've limited what payout you can get. Those used to be massive cash, they used to be massive earners, but then they stopped. They ceased to be the earner that they were. That means betting shops closed up and down the country, and then you've got the gambling rules have been getting tighter, and then suddenly you're looking over stateside, and they're legalizing sports betting, which the UK companies have huge amount of experience. So they go over there. The growth is over there. So it's like, well, yes, we are losing companies like that. They are going over there, but that makes sense.
What did we expect? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then you've got other companies, like British companies like, Arrival and Kazoo, who went for SPAC-backed listings over in the New York Stock Exchange, and they're basically toast now because they were rubbish. They went over they managed to, they swerved jumping through the listing rules hoops. And the fact of the matter is they weren't ready and they went at the wrong time. So yes, they went over there, but I'd say who cares? And then you've got like mining companies, but mining companies have so many different assets in different parts of the world, and it really, and I'll shut up with this last one, but like TUI, travel company, it decided to list in Frankfurt. But that makes sense as well because again, they're more of their investor base is over. So people have been saying this is what's going to happen. London's losing its position. I kind of think, well, no, it's not that, it's not a complete disaster. The listing rules are changing. Plus, we're going to be getting a new government. Probably. I mean, in the next few months, and I think even that is going to be. It's just a catalyst. There's going to be changes. So yeah, I think that there is willingness. There seems to be pent up demand, and the valuations are good. And the borrowing money is going to be cheaper. So I think that there is going to be a boom in the UK.
I'd like to take a moment to speak about the University of Law, which is the university I decided to study my LPC at. The University of Law is the sponsor of this podcast and makes it possible for us to continue bringing these episodes to you. So we really appreciate you supporting us by supporting our sponsors. What really sets the University of Law apart from other universities is its belief in training students for the real world from the moment they accept a place. The University of Law's experienced career service and award-winning pro bono clinics offer students the chance to get real-life legal experience which can boost employability. They offer a range of undergraduate and postgraduate legal training and master's degrees designed by qualified experts to help students excel at any stage of their career. Their courses are employment focused, honing key skills in a teaching environment based on real legal practice. Part-time and online study options are also available on many of their courses to help students work and study at the same time. If you'd like to find out more about the courses on offer, please click the link in the description box of the podcast.
And I suppose from if the listing rules are getting slightly more relaxed, I mean, what do you think the impact of a lot of maybe smaller businesses listing that wouldn't have, or newer companies that wouldn't have been able to list before? I mean, I suppose that'll be more work for lawyers advising on prospectuses and things like that. So that'll be good news. But do you think that there'll be any sort of downsides to that happening at all?
I mean, I suppose downsides, if you relax the rules, there's a possibility that you may get companies like with SPACs that just weren't ready to list. There's a reason for the rules. It is a pain to jump through all these hoops, but those hoops are there for a reason. So I suppose if you relax the rules, you increase the risk. But then again, you could argue that it's up to the investors to do their homework but I mean, I think that the M&A boom is just going to be really, it's going to power the whole food chain of deals. I mean, obviously the investment bankers, the lawyers, the accountants, London Stock Exchange, I mean, they'll all do well, and the thing is, especially now, they'll be very keen on making sure that they do particularly well, because this is such a, I'm sorry to say, but there's this saying, like a market saying, like flow begets flow, right? So the idea is that the more activity that goes on, the more activity it will just basically gain momentum and it will keep going. And so what you'll see is potentially companies, when it's early on in this M&A cycle, you tend to see companies, or say going on doing an IPO, they tend to have conservative valuations or have valuations that look conservative. The idea being that they float, they go up on the immediately afterwards. Everyone thinks, yes, this is great. This means that the next IPO I must put an order in, because otherwise it's just going to fly and I'm going to miss my opportunity. So that happens. I mean, that happens the other way, by the way. So if things go badly, then if you get a few of those go badly, then the sentiment can change overnight. But I think now we've been in a low, and I feel that the next few IPOs they're going to make sure they're going to really bend over backwards to make sure that they fly. And then once they do, there's just more and more and more is going to come. So I think that it's going to present a lot of opportunities for a lot of companies. But like I say, the risk is that you're going to get some companies that aren't quite ready for it, and they're going to list, and it's not going to go particularly well. But we'll see.
Very interesting to see how it plays out, I think.
So what happens? I mean, I've worked on IPOs and things in the past, and it's quite exciting. I mean, what happens in the build up to the IPO is there's a lot of things that go into this, but I'll just mention some specific bits. So there's a book. So you'll do a roadshow, right, where you get the company. So let's say you're the broker for that company. You then go on a roadshow where you see all the different investors. You say, look, we're great. We're doing this because of this. We want to raise this amount of money. What do you think? And they will then say, yes, this is great. This will fly. If you do it at this valuation, we reckon it could really fly, that sort of thing. So they do this roadshow. Then there's a book building period where they take all the orders, and you either do things they'll take orders at a specific price. They'll say, we'll have this amount of shares at this price, this amount of shares at a higher price. They'll say at strike, we'll go at strike. It's all that kind of thing. And then what happens, as you are someone like me, would be looking at the order book, and we'd be thinking about how many times is the order book covered. So a question that you get asked by investors in an IPO is, how much is the book covered? In other words, how many multiples of the demand is there? Because if you say to an investor, it's 10 times covered, they're going to go, wow, this is really hot. Okay, I will ask for more, or something like that. So I just thought I'd say that as an illustration of, when IPOs, when you get a feeling of the IPOs really getting hot, you can feel it, because you can feel the orders coming in. You can see, how many people, how desperate they are to get it. And then that just creates more enthusiasm. And then it means that for the next IPO and the next IPO, people are very quick to put their orders in and things. So yeah, it gets very exciting.
It sounds very exciting. And then I think it'd be good to talk about AI, because, there's obviously, there's a lot happening at the moment in relation to AI. So what professions or industries do you think are going to do well, or not so well from AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI this will be something, if you're going for interviews and things, this is going to be something that you've definitely got to have thought about. I'm sure that there'll be, if you're going for a law firm interview, they'll be saying, they may well ask a question, how do you think AI is going to affect our business, or something like that? And I would say it will be that common that you need to have a proper answer to that before you even set foot in the room. I think that there are a few industries that are going to be completely wiped out by AI, but I think most industries are going to be affected in some way. I think even if you're a delivery driver, for instance, AI is going to help, because it will make sort of your delivery schedule more efficient, for instance. I think that logistics is going to be transformed. I guess there's probably elements of AI that are already involved anyway, but I imagine that it's just going to get better, more efficient. But I think that you need to think about the impact of AI is going to be particularly strong in industries or professions that are very process driven. One example I would suggest is that I think call centers will die. I think that the reason for that is, you can replace someone with a bot. You can make it, you could probably make it so that it sounds human even. But although I'd say it feels wrong to say right now that AI will replace a human on, say, customer service. Actually, Klarna, they've been working with OpenAI, and their bot has got the same sort of approval rating as their human counterparts, and they're more efficient. They can do the work of, like, I don't know, 700 or something like that. And I think, because the thing is, people at call centers, they will work off a script, and AI is brilliant for that. So I think that there's a lot of scope for that. But I think that it's coming. It's something that it's going to get better, not worse. It's going to get more widespread, not less. And therefore, you need to be thinking about how this actually affects industry. I mean, clearly, the industries that's going to be most benefited by this is going to be the tech industry, anything that supplies into that. So, like Nvidia supplying the chips for the data centers that are used to train the AI models. Those they will do really well. It may well be that real estate, bizarrely, could potentially do well from this, because they're going to be more data centers, not less, and they need lots of land, so they're going to be able to buy. I mean, for me, one of the most interesting things that has happened recently is there was that a bit of land the British Vault was going to be using to build this massive gigafactory, which never happened. I think it was a private equity firm bought that land recently, and they're not going to use it for gigafactory. I mean, I remember in the build-up, everyone was going, "This is perfect. The gigafactory, it's on the coast. It's got this water supply. It's going to cool everything down. It's going to be great." And what does this company do? Well, no, we don't really want to get involved in electric vehicle batteries. We want to get involved in AI. So they're building massive data centers. So I think it's you've got to think like that as well. It's not so much. Don't just think of the obvious stuff, like that OpenAI is clearly going to do well from this, and Google's going to do, but also, the chips, the the parts, the companies that make the parts for the data centers, the real estate where the data centers go, anyone advising on that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a lot. It's a big question to ask, and I think that you need to really sort of think about how it relates to your particular area, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. All very interesting points, and I hadn't thought about the land, so that's that's definitely really interesting. Thank you, Peter. And also, we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but in terms of US and China tensions, do you think that companies are changing their expansion plans to take into account the US and China tensions?
Yeah, definitely. I think that in the past, I suppose that many companies thought that at some point there's going to be a normalization of US-China relations. But since Trump became president in 2016, it just seems to be that the sanctions and the moves have got tighter and tighter and tighter. And what I think is particularly interesting is this whole thing with Biden trying to outdo Trump in how anti-China he is as a vote winner, which we've mentioned. But I think that everyone is really rethinking now. They're thinking, okay, this is going to continue, and if the recent sort of things are developments or anything to go by, it's going to last at least another 4 years. So to that end, I think it's really important for companies and industries to move to diversify, as in geographically move to different places. I mean, I think that it is potentially this is the end. We are going to see the end of globalization, because now everyone's concerned. They're concerned about what could Russia do. Is Russia? I mean, there's all sorts of rumors about what Russia's thinking of doing. in Europe and things. So there's the concern there. There's the concern about the ongoing concern about China, Taiwan. All of these things mean that I think that, I don't know, there's feels like there's less trust between countries and between regions, and that means that there's going to be, and which is potentially why populist parties and things are seeing a bit of an upsurge in popularity, because people want to bring things back home, and or certainly rely less on countries and regions which they feel are risky. So to that end, I do think that they are trying to take that into account. That's why we're seeing companies maybe moving out of China, either or having manufacturing facilities maybe still in the region, but outside China, or they're going right out of China, and they're taking advantage of things like the pots of money that are available in the US under the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act as well. So it's very interesting at the moment. I think that everyone's having to take geopolitical situations much more seriously. And actually, sorry, something just popped into my head there about Goldman Sachs. They fairly recently made a kind of separate business that specifically advises clients on geopolitical risk. And then there was someone like an ex-Citi boss, I think Citigroup boss, has gone on to found her own geopolitical risk consultancy. I think that's gonna be big business, because so many things are changing. I think that people are feeling more uneasy about things. They're taking less things for granted, and where there is uncertainty, there's money to be earned. Sorry to sound very mercenary on this, but that's where the money is. So
yeah, there's obviously a lot of changes, and that's really interesting. Peter, thank you for going into detail. So you obviously write Watson's Daily, which is a very, very helpful newsletter, which goes out to subscribers. That's obviously a great place to start when it comes to developing commercial awareness. I just wondered if you had really any kind of top tips for our listeners who are aspiring lawyers who are trying to develop their commercial awareness and they want to impress at interviews. What would you say to them?
Okay, so I think first of all, you need to be methodical about your approach. So I think first things first, a lot of people say, how much of the day should I devote to this? And I turn it back to them and say, you need to think about how much time you can devote to this on a daily basis. Make a commitment. It's got to be every day. It's not once a week, once a month, night before the interview. That ain't going to work. You need to get it into to become a habit. And the reason why it needs to become a habit is because you need to get into a different way of thinking about the news. 99.9% of people read or consume the news and they let it wash over them. They kind of think, okay, interesting or not interesting, or what the hell is that? And they just let it go. Whereas really, by doing this every day, it tries to force you will try to think about how does it affect you? So what? Why is this important? I mean, that's the key question, to be honest. When you're thinking about a story, you're thinking, so what? What is the relevance of this? Either what's the relevance to me? What's the relevance to the industry? What's the relevance to the geography? Is there a global relevance to this? So I think that you need to be very methodical in your approach. There's a lot you can achieve in a short space of time. I think that you need to use sources that you can trust. I'm a big fan, obviously, of newspapers, because I feel that there's a certain quality that they have. Even certain newspapers that aren't seen to be, but there is some sort of quality going on. They're accountable as well, because they write for a specific newspaper. The journalists write for this newspaper. They have to turn up every day. It's not like they can write a sensational story and then disappear, which is not very, it's not very helpful. And I think that, generally that they can just be more consistent. I say they can be there every day. So I think trust your sources. I personally don't think that, for instance, BBC is great for commercial awareness. I think there are aspects of BBC which are good. Like, I think that guy, what's his name, Ros Atkins or something, Ros Atkinson. He does really quite good explainers of key things, actually, and he does it in a really good way. So I don't know him, or just to say that, but I think there's some good explainer things, but generally speaking, I think for commercial awareness for your job or interviews, it's more generalist. It doesn't go into enough detail on the commercial side of things. So I think that's so I think so. Be methodical, choose your sources wisely, and just go back to them and just keep going. I mean, there's lots of different resources as well. I mean, the FT does this, has really good little videos peppered around, which are good explaining things. Wall Street Journal does the same thing as well. If you are a student, my absolute tip is, apart from getting Watson's Daily, of course, is you've got to make sure that you get the FT. The FT is the fount of all knowledge, but it is a bit tricky to read, and there's ways of reading it so that you'll get the most out of it in a short space of time. But I think you need to really, if you are at uni, the reason why I say that is because probably your uni will have a free access to the FT. You must get that, because there is no other time in your life where you're going to get this incredibly expensive newspaper for nothing. And you might as well start when it costs you nothing rather than pay whatever it is. But the reason why I don't know is not because I'm sort of rolling around in money in my sort of garage full of Ferraris. It's more a case of I get it as a digital subscription. I forgot what it is, but the fact of the matter is you definitely need the FT in your life. It is the pink Bible. That's what it is. So yeah. I mean, just really think about, oh yes, the most difficult thing, but the thing that's going to help you even more is going to be discussing what you know. This is very important, because externalizing your knowledge means that you find out what you do know and you find out what you don't know. Now, what you don't want to happen is go to an interview and this is the first time you've ever talked about a subject. Ideally, you don't want to be the first time, because the more times you talk about something, the better you get at it. I mean, it was a bit like when I was broking, I did not call my top clients first. I called my most experienced clients who knew a lot first, because I would tell them the investment story. They would then say, yeah, that sounds good. Or, oh, well, have you said, Merrills have said this, Goldman's have said that, whatever. I then take that on board, and maybe you'll say, well, actually, yes, I know they say that, but actually we think this is the case. And then do a few of those for different clients. And then by the time I'm on my fifth call or something, I'm calling Fidelity and I'm saying, hey, right, here is the story. I think you should buy this because of this, this, and this. And I know that Goldman's are saying this, but Merrill's are saying that, Nomura's saying that, but actually we think that's a load of rubbish because of this. Bang, you've got your story. It's really bang, bang, bang. Rather than well, oh yeah, no, I didn't know that. Or the more you do it, the better you get. So it's important to discuss what you know, what you don't know, and you really need to. And the emphasis isn't discussion; it's not broadcasting. So it's not a case of sitting down in a group of people and just going, right, okay, I'll tell you everything I know about M&S. It's not that. It's you need to discuss it. So I think it's really that is very important. I think you need to do that if you can in a small group environment, because not everyone wants to talk about this sort of stuff, and you need to. I do, but
Yeah.
not everyone
That's
does.
a difficult thing, I think. finding like-minded people or people who are on the same sort of journey as you to do that. But
there needs to be, I reckon there should be some sort of secret society or something, like the stonemasons or something, like the underground commercial awareness group or something, maybe a special handshake perhaps, so that you can identify fellow people who are interested. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think that, discussion is very important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today. It's been great to have you on the show. I will leave links to all of your social media platforms in the show notes, and also to watsonsdaily.com. But I mean, is there anywhere in particular that listeners can get in touch with you? What would you advise?
I mean, I'm better on LinkedIn because I tend to get quite a lot of emails on a daily basis. So this is going to sound silly, but the reason why LinkedIn is better is because I see it flashing. I see it flashing, and I need to stop it from flashing, you see, so I can then reply better on that. But yeah, there's that. And just to say that I'm in the middle of doing, I think, probably the biggest revamp that I've done for quite a few years. And there's going to be some very useful new stuff going on, and then just the whole kind of thing. So you won't see it immediately, but over a period of time, there'll be a lot of stuff going on in the background, and then there'll be a big release. So I'll let I'll let people know when that happens.
Exciting. Well, I can't wait to see what happens. Been following Watson's Daily for a long time now, and it's incredible to see you grow. And yeah, very excited to see what comes next.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to all of the listeners for tuning in as well. And we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.
To hear more of the Student Lawyers podcast, hit the subscribe button and leave us a star rating and review. If you would like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentlawyer.com.